You know that feeling, right? Waking up from a dream and it's like either super vivid but makes no sense, or maybe it's just this jumbled mess that vanishes before you even properly wake up. But what if those, fleeting images and weird stories aren't just random brain noise? What if they're actually a direct line to your deepest desires, your fears, all those unspoken truths? And maybe, just maybe, understanding them could actually improve your life. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the really revolutionary world of Sigmund Freud, especially his work on dreams. Our mission here is simple: take Freud's ideas, really unpack what dreams are, how they get made, and crucially, figure out what understanding them can do for you. How it can be sort of a shortcut to some real self awareness and practical insights.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, for centuries, people were just baffled. Dreams were, maybe messages from gods, maybe just
Right.
static, physiological noise. Freud totally flipped that script. He argued that dreams are highly organized, deeply meaningful things our own minds create. And what's so fascinating, I think, is that his work gives us a kind of toolkit, right? A method. We can go beyond just having dreams to actually interpreting them, using that understanding to navigate our own, often messy inner worlds. And yeah, this whole deep dive is grounded in Freud's own text on dreams, where he first really laid all this out.
Okay, so before Freud came along and, changed everything, how did people even try to make sense of dreams? Seems like we've always been trying to figure them out.
Oh, absolutely. It's a long history. In what you might call the pre-scientific era, dreams were often seen as messages from outside.
Like divine intervention. Or maybe demons.
Exactly. Favorable signs or, hostile warnings from higher powers, gods, demons, spirits.
Hmm.
Depends on the culture. And you can kind of see why, right? You wake up from something intense, something you can't explain. It's natural to think it came from somewhere else. This really deep human need for explanation, it led to some, as Freud put it, ingenious mythology. Really elaborate systems for figuring out what the gods were trying to say.
Okay, so that's the ancient view. What happened when science started becoming more, scientific?
Well, the focus shifted a bit. People started thinking, okay, maybe dreams come from the dreamer's own mind, a move towards psychology, sort of. But even then, a lot of medical writers just dismissed them, called them scarcely psychical phenomena at all. It's not even really mental events.
So just physical stuff like
The-
indigestion or a noise outside.
Yeah, pretty much. Attributed to sensory stimuli, like you said, a noise, maybe something your internal organs are doing. There was this comparison, like dreams are the 10 fingers of a man who knows nothing of music wandering over the keys of a piano.
Meaningless noise, basically.
Exactly, just froth. The German phrase was Träume sind Schäume, dreams are foam. Useless, disconnected brain activity while the rest of you is asleep.
But not everyone bought that, right? Weren't there philosophers who thought dreams were more important?
Yes, definitely. Some philosophers, like Schubert, saw dreams quite differently, as an elevation to a higher level, almost like a spiritual liberation from the physical world. Others thought maybe dreams came from mental impulses that were blotched during the day. They even suggested some parts of the mind, like memory, might actually function better during sleep. So not just random noise, maybe a different kind of thinking.
And what about, regular people? What did they think?
Well, popular opinion, as Freud notes, was kind of unfazed by all the scientific dismissal. People just kept believing dreams meant something. Often they thought dreams predicted the future. And they had their own methods, dream books with fixed meanings for symbols, trying to find connections. It was like a kind of folk psychoanalysis, even if it was mixed up with superstition.
So the scientists were saying nonsense, but everyone else felt there was something there.
Exactly. And what Freud found so astonishing was that the view closest to the truth, in his opinion, wasn't the dismissive medical one. It was the popular one. The one that insisted dreams had meaning, even if it was, as he said, half involved in superstition. He saw that deep human desire to find meaning there. And then his big step was to say, okay, let's find a scientific way to uncover that meaning.
And that's where psychoanalysis comes in.
Precisely. His new method, psychoanalysis, was already showing impressive results. He was using it to treat things like phobias, obsessions, delusions, serious psychological issues. It wasn't just theory, it was working in practice.
How did treating phobias connect to dreams, though?
Well, think about it. Phobias, obsessions, they feel alien to your normal conscious self, right? Just like dreams often do. Their origins are hidden. Freud found that discovering the hidden trains of thought, the unconscious connections that link these weird symptoms to the rest of the person's mind, was actually the key to making the symptoms go away. Understanding the hidden roots let people gain control over ideas that seemed uncontrollable before. And that process, that investigation of hidden meanings, became his starting point for explaining dreams. It's where you first really see the potential to improve human life through understanding the unconscious. He thought, hey, maybe we can apply this same method to dreams.
Okay, so dreams aren't random noise, they have meaning. But how do we actually get at that meaning? What is this new method, this psychoanalysis that Freud discovered? This feels like where it gets practical for, understanding ourselves.
Right, this is the how-to in a sense. The procedure, when working with someone, starts with a very specific instruction. You focus your attention on a particular idea, maybe an element from a dream. But here's the crucial bit. You don't reflect on it like you normally would, trying to figure it out logically. Instead, you're told to just notice whatever pops into your mind, anything at all, and report it without any exception.
That sounds hard, just letting things float up without judging them.
It is hard. That's why Freud mentions the initial resistance. People often say, nothing comes to mind. But he insisted with energetic assurance that a complete lack of ideas is impossible. Something will come up. The real trick is overcoming that critical voice in your head, the voice that says, that's silly, or that's unimportant, or that's completely random.
Because those random thoughts are actually the key.
Exactly. Those involuntary associations, the ones that seem senseless or irrelevant, are the breadcrumbs you need to follow. You have to abandon the criticism and just see where they lead. And when you do that, what happens is this quantity of psychical material emerges. And pretty soon you start to see how it connects back to the original dream element. It reveals the hidden links. Freud actually suggests, if you're trying this yourself, to write down those first, maybe unintelligible thoughts immediately. Don't let them slip away.
Okay. And Freud did this himself, right? He analyzed his own dreams.
He did. He emphasized that any dream could work. But obviously, analyzing your own can be tricky because, well, you might uncover things you'd rather not share. He gives this famous example, his spinach dream. Should I quickly run through the basics of it?
Yeah, definitely. What was the dream itself?
Okay, so as he remembered it, the manifest content was company at table, or table d'hôte. Spinach was being eaten. Frau El was sitting beside me. She was turning her whole attention to me and laid her hand on my knee in an intimate manner. I removed her hand unresponsively. She then said, "But you've always had such beautiful eyes." I then had an indistinct picture of two eyes, as though it were a drawing or like the outline of a pair of spectacles.
Okay, that does sound pretty random. Spinach, a strange woman, beautiful eyes.
Right. His first impression was just that. Obscure, meaningless, surprising. He barely knew Frau El, and there wasn't any strong feeling attached to it. So the question is, how do you start analyzing that? The method-free association means you break the dream down. Take each bit separately. The spinach, Frau El, the hand on the knee, the comment about eyes, the spectacles image. And for each piece, you just let your mind wander. No censorship, no trying to make sense of it yet. Just capture every thought, every memory, every feeling that bubbles up in connection with, say, spinach.
Why do we need to dig like that, though? Why isn't the dream story itself enough?
Well, that brings us to two absolutely crucial terms Freud introduced. Manifest content and latent content. The manifest content is the dream you remember, the surface story, like
Right.
the spinach, Frau El, the beautiful eyes. That's what you wake up with.
Okay.
The latent content, though, that's the hidden stuff, the underlying thoughts and recollections that only come out through analysis. These thoughts are usually deeply emotional, they're logically connected, they form a coherent story that actually explains the weird surface dream. The difference is huge. The manifest dream is often short, weird, unemotional, disconnected. The latent thoughts were the complete opposite. They make sense, they're linked, but the connection isn't obvious at all until you do the work. It's like decoding a message where the cipher key itself is hidden within the process.
And the process that turns the hidden stuff into the weird dream story?
That's what Freud called the dream work. It's the mental process that transforms the latent content into the manifest content. It's the mechanism of disguise, basically. And the work of analysis, then, is the reverse. It's our work, taking the manifest dream and transforming it back into the latent thoughts, uncovering those hidden meanings. That's the real application for self-understanding. You're trying to undo the dream work. Freud basically argued that all the confusion and dismissal surrounding dreams comes from not knowing about this latent content. Once you grasp this distinction and the work involved, you have a path to deeper self-knowledge.
Okay, so the dream work twists things around. But does it do that equally for all dreams? Or are some, less mysterious than others?
That's a great question. Freud actually saw a spectrum, and he grouped dreams into three main categories based on how disguised they are.
All right, what's the first type?
Category 1 is what he called intelligible and meaningful dreams. These are the ones that just make sense. You wake up, you remember it, and you can basically slot it straight into your waking life without much head scratching. They're often short, they seem a bit trivial, nothing particularly strange about them.
Like dreaming you're thirsty and then dreaming you drink something.
Exactly like that. Or dreaming about something you were worried about during the day in a straightforward way. But even though they seem simple, Freud points out they're actually a strong argument against the idea that dreams are just random brain noise.
Sure.
Because they clearly show coherent thought, right? Not just static. You've probably had these. They might not seem profound, but their directness is a clue in itself.
Okay, simple and clear. What's category 2?
Category 2 is dreams with a clear sense but bewildering effect. These dreams have a coherent story, they make sense internally, but they feel totally out of place in your waking life. His example is dreaming a loved relative died of the plague when there's absolutely no reason in reality to fear that. The dream itself is clear, but you wake up thinking, where on earth did that come from? How did I even get hold of that idea?
Right, the content is logical, but its appearance is baffling.
Precisely. And then there's category 3, dreams without sense or intelligibility. These are the ones we usually think of when we say dreams are weird, disconnected, confused, nonsensical. Freud thought these were the preponderant majority of dreams.
The really bizarre ones.
Yeah, the ones that seem to justify the low opinion people often have of dreams and the medical idea that the brain's just firing randomly. They show the most obvious signs of incoherence, especially the longer, more complex ones. These are the dreams that really make you scratch your head, and they were Freud's main focus because they posed the biggest puzzle, and therefore offered the most potential for discovery through analysis.
So the difference between the remembered dream manifest and the hidden thoughts latent is biggest for those last two types.
Exactly. Especially category 3. Those are the real riddles that only make sense once you uncover the latent thoughts behind the bizarre manifest content. Freud's own spinach dream falls right into that last category. On the surface, nonsense. But the analysis revealed really deep, hidden motivations that were completely disguised.
You mentioned children's dreams earlier. Do they fit into this?
Ah, yes. Let's dive into those, particularly category 1 dreams, because children's dreams are often the clearest examples. They're frequently significant and not puzzling, which again argues strongly against the random brain activity theory. Freud believed that understanding kids' minds, where things are often simpler, is crucial for understanding adults. An indispensable prelude, he called it.
So what are some examples of these clear children's dreams?
They're often really direct wish fulfillments. Remember the little girl just 19 months old who was kept hungry? She dreamt of squabules, wild squabules, omelet pudding.
Just listing all the food she wanted.
Exactly. Direct fulfillment of hunger. Or the little boy, 22 months old, who had to give away his basket of cherries after only eating one. He woke up happy, announcing, "Herman eaten all the chewies." He dreamt he got to keep them all.
Huh. Makes perfect sense.
Right. Or a little girl who cried because a boat trip ended too soon. She dreamt the trip continued all night. A boy disappointed he couldn't climb a mountain. Dreamt he climbed it. The common thread is crystal clear. They all fulfilled wishes that were active during the day but didn't happen. Simple, undisguised wish fulfillments. And these weren't trivial wishes. They were things the kids felt intensely about during the day. Nothing unimportant gets into these dreams.
Do adults ever have dreams that simple?
Yes, sometimes. Freud called them infantile-type dreams in adults. They're usually short, like the thirst dreams we mentioned, dreaming of drinking so you can keep sleeping. Or those dreams of convenience, dreaming you're already dressed or already arrived somewhere just to put off waking up. There's also a slightly more subtle example. A young wife who missed her period dreamt it had started. Knowing she wanted to postpone pregnancy, the dream fulfilled that wish, albeit indirectly. It requires just a tiny bit of interpretation, but it's still fundamentally a wish fulfillment.
Okay, this is really interesting. So even in the simplest dreams, the mind is actively doing something, right? It's transforming a wish into an experience.
Exactly. That transformation is the basic dream work. Even in these simple cases, the wish is shown as already fulfilled, right now in the present tense, usually with vivid images. This sets the stage. If the mind does this for simple, acceptable wishes, imagine what it does when the wishes are more complex, more hidden, maybe even things we don't want to admit to ourselves. That's where the more elaborate disguises come in.
Okay, now we're getting to the real core of it. If simple dreams show the wish directly, how does the mind build those complex, bizarre Category 3 dreams from our hidden thoughts and wishes? What happens when the wishes aren't so simple? Or maybe they're things we've repressed.
Right, this is where Freud details the specific mechanisms of the dream work, the mental processes that act like architects, constructing the final dream narrative we remember. There are several key ones. Hashtag I. Wish fulfillment, revisited for disguised dreams.
So we know dreams are wish fulfillments. But how does that work in the confusing dreams? It's not always obvious.
Well, even in those disguised dreams, the principle often holds, but sometimes in reverse. Disagreeable experiences or thoughts from the day can trigger a wish for the exact opposite. Think back to Freud's spinach dream. He mentioned being annoyed with his wife in real life for not paying enough attention. But in the dream, Frau El, who stood in for his wife, was giving him her full attention.
Ah, so the dream presented the opposite of the annoying reality.
Precisely. And remember the beautiful eyes comment? Analysis linked it to getting things for free, which was the opposite of his feeling that he always had to pay dearly for things in life. So a big part of the gap between the manifest dream and the latent thoughts comes from this. The dream fulfills the wish for the opposite of some negative reality. It constructs a more pleasant scenario, hiding the original unpleasant thought. Hashtag tag 2, condensation, compression, and fusion.
Okay, fulfilling the opposite wish is one thing. What else does the dream work do?
Another really striking process and a major reason dreams seem so packed and weird is condensation. This is where the dream work compresses a huge amount of underlying dream thoughts, ideas, memories, feelings into a much shorter, more compact manifest dream. Freud was seriously impressed by this, saying the more you analyze a dream, the more incredible the degree of condensation seems.
How does it manage to pack so much in?
It works through association. Every single element in the dream you remember acts like a junction point, with associative threads branching out in multiple directions, connecting it to many different latent thoughts. So a single image in your dream isn't just one thing, it's often a fusion, put together from bits and pieces of two or more different impressions or experiences from your life. Freud used this great analogy from Francis Galton's composite photographs. Galton would layer portraits of family members on top of each other.
Right, so the common features stand out, and the differences get blurry.
Exactly. Common elements are reinforced, contradictory details kind of cancel each other out, leading to that characteristic vagueness you often find in dream images. That random person in your dream might actually be a composite figure representing several people you know, all linked by some common idea or feeling in your latent thoughts. So the key insight, your mind acts like a super efficient editor, packing complex emotional narratives into single, dense images. That weird object isn't just random, it's a composite photograph of many connected ideas.
What if there isn't an obvious connection between thoughts it wants to link?
Well, the dream work can get creative. If there's no ready-made link, it can actually create one, often by playing with words. It might tweak the phrasing of one thought so it sounds like another, a bit like forcing a rhyme in poetry. Remember the spinach in Freud's dream. The underlying thought was about wanting enjoyment without cost. The German word kosten means both cost and to taste. This wordplay allowed the unrelated idea of spinach, something a mother tells a child to just taste, or kosten, to sneak into the dream, linking the abstract idea of cost to a concrete image. It shows how clever, even if seemingly far-fetched, the dream work can be infusing ideas.
So condensation explains composite figures too, like seeing someone who looks like two people at once.
Yes, definitely. Composite figures having features of two people, or the form of one with the name of another, are classic condensation. Their meaning is usually like an and or a just as, pointing to a comparison or shared quality between the original people, which analysis then has to uncover. It also creates composite structures. Freud dreamt of sitting on a bench that was somehow both a lecture theater and a moving walkway. This fusion represented multiple related thoughts. What this really shows is that each dream element is overdetermined. It stands for many different latent thoughts simultaneously. And conversely, one latent thought might be represented by several different dream elements. It's like a complex web of intersecting threads. Hashtag 3. Displacement, transvaluation of psychical values.
Okay, condensation packs things together. But that doesn't fully explain why dreams feel so off, why the important stuff seems ignored and trivial things get highlighted.
Exactly. For that, we need the third major mechanism, displacement. Freud also called it a transvaluation of psychical values, which is a fancy way of saying it shifts the emotional importance around. And this, he thought, is absolutely crucial for disguise. Displacement is when the intensity, the significance, the emotional charge gets transferred from the truly important latent thoughts onto seemingly trivial, unimportant elements in the manifest dream. Freud said, no other process contributes so much to concealing the meaning of a dream. We tend to think the most vivid part of the dream must be the most important part, but displacement means it's often the opposite. A minor detail, something indistinct, might be the direct stand-in for the most crucial underlying idea.
Can we see that in the spinach string too?
Absolutely. The manifest dream focused on Frau EL making advances. Seems like the main event. But the analysis showed the real emotional core was the wish for unselfish love, love which costs nothing. That core idea was hidden behind the beautiful eyes comment and the weird spinach connection. And remember the trigger for the dream, a totally insignificant event, a friend giving Freud a free cab ride.
Right, seemed random.
But it wasn't random in its connections. That trivial event linked up, via the idea of cost, to a much more significant, emotionally charged recent event. Freud spending a lot of money on a family member. The underlying thought was something like, love from that person certainly isn't free of cost, maybe tinged with regret about the expense. The minor cab ride incident allowed this major, but perhaps uncomfortable thought about the cost of love and his expenditure to surface in a disguised way. The intensity shifted from the significant expense to the trivial cab ride. So displacement is key to understanding why dreams zero in on odd details while ignoring what seems obviously important from our waking life. It's a primary tool for distortion. Hashtag coffee. Pictorial arrangement. Dramatization.
All right, so we have condensation packing things, displacement shifting importance. What else? Dreams are very visual, aren't they?
Yes, and that's the fourth process. Pictorial arrangement, or you could call it dramatization. This is the mechanism that translates the abstract dream thoughts, ideas, arguments, memories into concrete visual scenes. The manifest dream is mostly made up of these pictures and situations. Often, Freud noted, powerful memories, especially from childhood, act like nuclei of crystallization. They attract other related thoughts and provide the basic visual structure for the dream scene.
But something gets lost in translation, right? Dreams don't seem very logical.
Exactly. As the thoughts get condensed, displaced, and turned into pictures, the logical connections between them, like cause and effect, if then either or, often get dropped or represented in weird ways. Dreams have a very limited way of showing logic. Proximity in the dream might mean connection. Cause and effect might be shown just by sequence, sometimes even reversed. Either or simply doesn't exist. The dream just includes both alternatives, meaning analysis has to translate either or as and. Contrasting ideas might even be fused into the same image. The word no isn't really represented directly. Opposition might be shown by reversal or combining opposites.
What about dreams that are just completely absurd, like logically impossible?
Freud found those particularly interesting. He argued that if a dream is obviously absurd, it's usually intentionally absurd. The absurdity itself is part of the message. It's the dream thoughts expressing criticism, ridicule, or contradiction about something. The dream's disregard for logic mirrors a judgment in the underlying thoughts. He gave this example of dreaming that a contemporary businessman, Herr M., was attacked in an essay by the long-dead poet Goethe. Total nonsense.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
But the latent thoughts, for Freud, connected this absurdity to the crushing criticism a friend's book had received and his own anxiety about how his controversial theories on sexuality would be received. The absurdity was like the dream ironically saying, yeah, sure, he's the fool and you guys are the geniuses. It used absurdity to express his own identification with his friend and his sarcastic take on potential critics. It shows how even total nonsense in a dream can be a disguised commentary from the latent thoughts. #V. Secondary revision, the dream facade.
Okay, condensation, displacement, pictorial form. Is that everything? Does the mind do anything else to the dream before we remember it?
There's one final touch, according to Freud. Secondary revision. You can think of it as creating the dream facade. It's the mind's attempt to take all these condensed, displaced pictorial fragments and arrange them into a relatively coherent story, something that makes at least a little bit of narrative sense. This probably happens after the main dream work is done, maybe as we're starting to wake up. The motive seems to be our waking mind's constant striving for intelligibility. We try to make sense of any input, even if it means smoothing over the weirdness or filling in gaps.
So it's like our rational mind trying to tidy up the mess the unconscious made.
Kind of, yeah. Well-constructed dreams, the ones that feel more like a story, have probably undergone more of this secondary revision. The really hopelessly confused ones are where this tidying up process didn't happen much or failed. For analysis, though, this secondary revision can be misleading. You have to try and see past the apparently logical surface it creates, because that surface is often a glaring misunderstanding of the actual latent thoughts. It's another layer of disguise in a way.
Does this mean the dream work is actually creative, like inventing stories?
That's a really important point. Freud was clear. The dream work itself is not creative in the way we usually think of it. It doesn't invent new fantasies, make original judgments, or draw novel conclusions. All it does is condense, displace, translate into pictures, and sometimes apply that secondary revision. Any apparent intellectual activity in a dream, an argument, a calculation, a judgment, is actually taken over directly from the underlying latent dream thoughts. It's just repeated in the dream, often distorted by displacement.
Can you give an example of that taken over idea?
Sure. There was a patient who dreamt a butcher told her about some meat that's not obtainable any longer. Analysis showed this phrase was actually something Freud had recently said to her about inaccessible childhood memories. In the same dream, she rejected something offered, saying, "I don't recognize that. I won't take it." This phrase was taken from her waking life when she told her cook-off, "Behave yourself properly." It was displaced in the dream to represent her resistance to recognizing Freud's interpretation, which she felt was improper. See how the dream borrowed phrases from waking life, originally connected to different thoughts, and reassembled them into a new, disguised scenario? The intellectual content wasn't created by the dream, it was just copied and pasted, often out of context.
Okay, we've mapped out the how condensation, displacement, all that intricate dream work, but it leads to the massive question, why? Why go to all this trouble to distort things? Why aren't dreams just straightforward, especially if they're wish fulfillments? What's the driving force behind the disguise?
This is really getting to the heart of Freud's theory. And the first thing to realize is that this dream work mechanism, it's not just for dreams. Freud saw it as the fundamental way the unconscious mind works. These processes, condensation, displacement, pictorial representation, are the same ones responsible for things like hysterical symptoms, phobias, obsessions, even delusions.
So the same mental tricks that build dreams also build neurotic symptoms.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. He argued these processes are even at play in everyday life for healthy people. Think about forgetting a name, slips of the tongue, messing up simple actions, making certain kinds of errors. He saw the same unconscious mechanisms at work. Sleep isn't required. Illness isn't required. This is just how a part of our mind operates.
Wow. Okay, so what part of that process is key to the distortion, the disguise in dreams?
The real linchpin seems to be displacement, that shifting of emotional energy. Remember Freud analyzing his own dream, the spinach one? He admitted he had to stop his report because certain thoughts came up that were, well, disagreeable. Things he preferred to keep hidden, even from himself to some extent. These thoughts were definitely there. They had energy, but they existed in this peculiar psychological situation where they couldn't easily become conscious.
They were blocked somehow.
Yes.
Yep.
And this state, this inadmissibility to consciousness, is what Freud termed repression. He then drew a direct causal link. The obscurity, the weirdness of the dream's manifest content is caused by the repression of certain underlying dream thoughts. The dream has to be obscured, it has to be distorted, precisely so it doesn't betray these forbidden, repressed thoughts. Dream distortion is the work of disguise, serving the needs of repression.
Let's link that back to the spinach dream again. What was repressed there?
Remember the free cab ride linked to the expensive family expenditure. The interpretation led to the wish, "I wish I could experience love that cost me nothing." Behind that was the latent thought, "I regret having spent that money." But Freud notes, when he actually spent the money, he didn't consciously hesitate. The feeling of regret, that contrary current of feeling, was present unconsciously, but didn't make it into his awareness. It was repressed. The dream allowed it a disguised expression.
Okay, now connect this to the idea of improving life. You mentioned a patient with a dream about theater tickets.
Right. This is where it gets really compelling in terms of practical application. Analysis of her dream, which seemed absurd on the surface, something about getting 3 tickets for 2 people, led unavoidably to the conclusion that she secretly held a low opinion of her husband and deeply regretted marrying him. Consciously, she insisted she loved him. But her neurotic symptoms all pointed in the same direction as the dream's hidden meaning.
So the dream revealed a truth she wasn't consciously admitting.
Exactly. And here's the crucial part for improving human life. When the analysis helped her revive the repressed memories from a time when she had consciously not loved him, when that hidden truth came fully into consciousness, her symptoms cleared up, and her resistance to interpreting the dream vanished. It's a powerful illustration. Bringing repressed thoughts and feelings, however uncomfortable, into conscious awareness can directly lead to psychological healing and improved well-being. Understanding the dream was the key to unlocking the repressed material that was causing her suffering.
So there's like a battle going on in the mind.
That's the model Freud proposed. He pictured two agencies or systems in the mind. The first agency is the unconscious. Its thoughts and impulses can't reach consciousness directly. The second agency is more like our conscious, rational mind, which has free access to awareness. And guarding the border between them is the censorship. It acts like a gatekeeper, only letting acceptable thoughts pass from the unconscious to the conscious. Everything else gets pushed back or held down. That's repression.
And sleep messes with the guard.
Sort of. During sleep, the censorship relaxes. It lowers its guard. This allows some of that repressed material, those forbidden wishes and thoughts, a chance to sneak towards consciousness. But the censor isn't totally asleep on the job. It's weakened, but still active. So the repressed stuff has to disguise itself. It has to undergo alterations, condensation, displacement to mitigate its offensive features and slip past the relaxed guard. What we experience as the manifest dream is therefore a compromise. It's a negotiation between the unconscious impulse trying to get out and the censorship still trying to keep it hidden. This pattern of repression, relaxed censorship, compromise formation via dream work is fundamental.
Does that explain why we forget dreams so easily, too?
Yes, according to Freud. As soon as we wake up, the censorship snaps back to full strength. And it quickly works to erase or push back down the forbidden material that managed to get through during its period of weakness. It's interesting that often the little fragments of a dream we do remember, maybe hours later, often turn out to be the most direct clues to the hidden meaning. It's like they were the bits that the censorship had the hardest time suppressing again. It really highlights that ongoing tension in the mind.
Okay, this is starting to paint a picture of dreams as this nightly drama of repressed wishes and censorship. But what's the point of it all? Is it just internal conflict playing out, or do dreams actually do something useful?
Well, here Freud makes another really counterintuitive claim. Common sense says dreams disturb sleep, right? They wake us up. Freud argues the exact opposite. Dreams are the guardians of sleep. Their primary function is to protect sleep.
How can a bizarre, sometimes scary dream protect sleep?
Let's go back to children's dreams again, where it's clearest. Imagine a child who wants something intensely. I want the rhino. A child who's maybe less well-behaved might just wake up screaming for it. But, Freud suggests, a better-behaved child might instead dream they're playing with the rhino. Now, because children, and our dreaming minds to some extent, take the dream hallucination as real while it's happening, the dream shows the wish as fulfilled. And if the wish is fulfilled, even in a dream, it temporarily goes away. It does away with the wish, as Freud puts it, and makes continued sleep possible. The dream satisfies the desire psychically, so the child doesn't need to wake up to satisfy it physically.
Okay, that makes sense for simple wishes. But what about adults with all our complex repressions?
The principle is similar, but the mechanism involves that ego we talked about, the conscious part of our mind. Our adult ego learns to postpone desires, to tell fantasy from reality. It develops strong powers to inhibit impulses and maintain repression, keeping those useless to life, childish wishes under control. But during sleep, the main desire of the ego is simply the wish to sleep. To maintain that, it has to relax some of the energy it normally uses to hold down the repressed stuff.
But doesn't relaxing the guards risk waking us up if those repressed wishes bubble up?
It does pose a risk. But the mind has another trick. Even when we're asleep, there's a part of us still monitoring the environment that guard against sensory stimuli. The part that lets a mother wake to her baby's cry, but not the traffic noise. Freud believed this guard also monitors internal stimuli, like those bubbling up repressed wishes. And when it does, it's clever. It combines the internal wish stimulus with maybe some external sensory input, or just with other thoughts, and weaves them together into the dream. The dream becomes a compromise. It gives the repressed wish some form of psychical consummation by representing it as fulfilled, even if disguised, and it satisfies the ego's wish to keep sleeping. It's like the sleeping ego sees the dream and says, okay, you got what you wanted, now let me sleep.
Huh, so the dream is like a psychic pacifier.
In a way, yes. And that feeling we often have when awake, that dreams are silly or unimportant. Freud thought that might be the sleeping ego's own judgment carrying over. The ego knows the dream isn't real action, so it dismisses it. If a dream gets too disturbing, too close to breaking through the disguise, we might even consciously think, phew, it's only a dream, and deliberately use that thought to go back to sleep. It really flips the script. Dreams are actively working for your sleep.
What about nightmares then? Anxiety dreams. They definitely don't feel like guardians of sleep.
Those are the exceptions that prove the rule, in a sense. They're the marginal cases where the dream work fails. The repressed material is too strong, the anxiety breaks through the disguise, and the dream can no longer perform its function. Instead of protecting sleep, the anxiety itself wakes you up. Freud used the analogy of a night watchman. He tries to handle minor disturbances quietly himself, like the dream work handling wishes. But if something really serious happens, like overwhelming anxiety, his duty is to sound the alarm and wake everyone up. Anxiety in a dream is that alarm bell.
Does this guardian idea also explain how dreams react to things like noise?
Absolutely. We know from experiments that external stimuli sounds, lights, pressure get woven into dreams. But how they get woven in shows the guardian function. Dreams try to get rid of the external stimulus to protect sleep. One way is by dreaming a situation completely incompatible with the stimulus. Like the man with the painful abscess who dreamt he was riding a horse, using the painful poultice as a saddle, incorporating the pain into a non-threatening, though bizarre scenario. Or, more commonly, the dream gives the stimulus an interpretation that fits with a repressed wish, effectively neutralizing its reality. Like the person dreaming of thunderous applause when someone was actually beating a carpet nearby. The dream took the disruptive noise and explained it away as part of a wish-fulfilling scenario, a success, allowing sleep to continue, at least for a while. Every dream that incorporates noise right before waking is basically making a last-ditch effort to explain away the disturbance and keep you asleep. It shows the mind actively working to preserve rest.
Okay, so dreams are wish fulfillments, often disguised, and they act as guardians of sleep. Now, you mentioned repressed wishes are often the engine. Freud had a specific idea about what kind of wishes are most often behind adult dreams, didn't he?
He did, and it's probably one of his most famous and perhaps controversial claims. Based on his analyses, he concluded that most of the dreams of adults are traced back by analysis to erotic wishes.
Most dreams. Even ones that seem totally non-sexual.
That was his finding. Obviously, there are overtly sexual dreams, and analysis of those often revealed surprising things too, maybe about partners chosen, or hints of desires that would be considered perversions in waking life. But more significantly, he found that many dreams with absolutely no obvious erotic content in the manifest story turned out, through analysis of the latent thoughts, to be disguised sexual wish fulfillments. He even suggested that those ordinary residues of the previous day, the mundane thoughts that drift into dreams, often only get included because they can hitch a ride with the energy of a repressed erotic wish.
Why erotic wishes specifically? Why are they supposedly so central?
Freud didn't think there was a strict theoretical necessity for it, but he offered a compelling practical reason. No other group of instincts, he wrote, has been submitted to such far-reaching suppression by the demands of cultural education. Basically, society forces us to repress our sexual impulses more than almost any other drive. At the same time, these instincts are incredibly powerful and often find it easiest to escape from the control of the highest mental agencies. Add to that his theories about infantile sexuality, the idea that powerful, often misunderstood sexual feelings exist from early childhood, and he concluded that these repressed, infantile sexual wishes provide the most frequent and potent fuel for dream construction. They're the deep, powerful desires most likely to be pushed down, and therefore most likely to seek expression in disguise.
If they're so repressed, how do they manage to show up in dreams without waking us up or being instantly censored? Especially if the dream content seems totally innocent.
Through disguise, primarily using hints, illusions, and similar forms of indirect representation. And a major form of this indirect representation is what Freud identified as symbols.
Ugh, dream symbols. We hear a lot about those. What makes something a symbol in Freud's view?
Well, dream symbols have some key characteristics. First, their meaning isn't obvious. You can't immediately tell what they stand for just by looking at them. The connection feels arbitrary. Second, and this is fascinating, the same symbols tend to appear across different people, different languages, different cultures. There seems to be a universal quality to them. Third, the dreamer themselves is usually totally unaware of the symbol's meaning. It doesn't occur to them that the object represents something else. It's often difficult at first sight, Freud said, to discover the source of the connection between the symbol and what it symbolizes.
If these symbols are universal and the dreamer doesn't know their meaning, does knowing about symbols help interpret dreams, like a dream dictionary?
It helps, definitely. Freud acknowledged that knowledge of common dream symbols allows an interpreter to understand certain dream elements, sometimes even whole dream sections, without needing the dreamer's free associations for that specific element. He admitted this approach comes closest to the popular ideal of translating dreams, like those old dream books, but grounded in psychological observation rather than superstition.
What are some common examples Freud identified?
Well, he listed quite a few, and many relate back to those core erotic themes or family figures. For instance, emperor and empress, or king and queen, often symbolize the dreamer's parents. Objects like rooms frequently stand for women, with entrances and exits representing body openings. A huge number of symbols he found represent people, body parts, especially genitals, or activities related to sex. So, male genitals might be symbolized by anything long and stiff or sharp sticks, tree trunks, knives, weapons. Also things that penetrate or flow water. The uterus might appear as hollow objects one can enter cupboards, boxes, carriages, ovens, ships. Some are less obvious. Climbing stairs or ladders often symbolizes sexual intercourse. A necktie might symbolize the male organ. Wood could symbolize the female genitals, related to etymology in some languages. Some symbols are even bisexual, meaning they could stand for male or female genitals, depending on the dream's context.
Where do these symbols even come from? Why does a tie mean that?
Freud suggested multiple sources. Some seem almost universal, found across diverse cultures and languages, suggesting deep, perhaps archaic roots in human thought. Others might be more individual, built from the person's own unique experiences and ideas. Some links come from language itself. Think about words like seed or phrases related to plowing, used metaphorically for sex. He believed many reached back to the earliest ages and to the most obscure depths of our conceptual functioning. And it's an ongoing process. He noted how new inventions like airships in his time quickly got adopted as universally understood sexual symbols.
But if we know the symbols, can we just translate the dream directly? Do we still need free association?
No, and Freud was very clear about this limitation. He stressed it would be a mistake to think that even a perfect knowledge of symbols could replace free association. Why? Because you can't always tell if an element in a dream is being used symbolically or just literally. Not every stick is a phallic symbol. And not the whole dream is symbolic. Much of it is built from other kinds of material. Symbolism helps translate certain bits, but it will not relieve us of the necessity for applying the technical rules, of letting the dreamer associate freely to the elements. It's a valuable aid, especially when associations stall, but it's not the whole picture.
So symbols aren't just in dreams.
Not at all. Freud saw dream symbolism as extending far beyond dreams. He found the same symbolic language used in fairy tales, myths, legends, even jokes, and everyday folklore. It's not peculiar to dreams, he concluded, but seems to be a fundamental characteristic of unconscious thinking in general. It's the raw material the dream work uses for condensation, displacement, and turning thoughts into pictures. Realizing this really underlines the richness and depth of our own unconscious and shows how it connects our personal inner world to broader universal human patterns of thought.
Wow. Okay, we've really journeyed deep into the hidden world of dreams, how they're built, why they're disguised, what might be driving them. But let's bring it back home. What does all this Freudian insight actually mean for you, the listener? How can digging into these ideas genuinely improve your life, your self-awareness?
Right, let's unpack the practical takeaways. First off, simply understanding the dream work processes, condensation, displacement, pictorial arrangement, secondary revision that's powerful in itself. Just knowing how your mind distorts things helps you approach your dreams differently. Instead of dismissing them as meaningless nonsense when they seem bizarre, you can look at them as coded messages. You have the beginnings of the decoder ring, It shifts your perspective from confusion to curiosity. You realize there's a reason it looks weird.
And the core method for decoding is free association.
Exactly. That's the central application for improving life that comes out of this. Training yourself to notice and follow those involuntary associations without judgment, just letting your mind drift from each dream piece and seeing what comes up, is the practical way to access the latent thoughts. Remember the impact on neurotic patients. Bringing repressed material, like the woman's hidden feelings about her husband, into conscious awareness led to symptom relief. For you, listening now, it offers a path to uncover your own hidden, contrary currents of feeling. Maybe unacknowledged wishes or unresolved conflicts that are subtly messing with your waking mood or behavior. It's fundamentally about self-knowledge as a direct route to self-improvement, addressing the unspoken stuff.
And what about the idea of dreams being guardians of sleep? How does knowing that help?
It helps reframe your relationship with dreams. Instead of seeing them as annoying disturbances, you can view them as your mind actively working for you, trying to maintain psychological balance and protect your rest. They're trying to satisfy wishes, even the difficult ones, to keep you asleep, They're interpreting noises to minimize disruption. Understanding this protective function can lessen anxiety about weird or even scary dreams. You see them not as attacks, but as the mind's sometimes strained efforts to cope and keep things running smoothly overnight. It fosters appreciation rather than fear.
And the symbols. How does knowing about them contribute to self-understanding?
Recognizing symbolism offers another layer of potential insight, especially if your direct associations feel blocked or confusing. Knowing common symbols like rooms for women or climbing for intercourse gives you potential starting points for interpretation. It also does something deeper. It connects your purely personal dream experience to that shared, universal symbolic language found in myths and folklore. It can lead to profound insights into your own desires, fears, and conflicts, showing how they resonate with fundamental human themes. It's not just interpreting code, it's tapping into a richer layer of meaning.
So ultimately, it's about empowering yourself through self-analysis, even if you're not in therapy.
Precisely. While professional help is obviously best for serious issues, the basic principles are applicable by anyone seeking greater self-awareness. The simple act of writing down your dreams right away, then taking each element and just jotting down whatever comes to mind without censoring, that's a concrete first step anyone can take. It's about cultivating that ongoing dialogue with your unconscious. This continuous process, even if it feels random at first, can lead to those sudden aha moments, connecting a seemingly trivial dream detail to something deeply significant in your life. Psychical material of the highest order, as Freud put it. It's about becoming more integrated, more understood by actively engaging with your hidden inner world.
And what happens when we actually do uncover some of these hidden truths through analyzing our dreams?
Well, that really raises the crucial question. Freud's whole point is that making the unconscious conscious is where the real psychological work begins. It's the foundation for improvement. By bringing these hidden wishes, fears, conflicts into the light of awareness, you can start to address the root causes of feelings like anxiety or dissatisfaction, or understand the hidden motivations behind your choices. It gives you the chance to make conscious decisions that are more aligned with your whole self, including the parts you've repressed, rather than being driven by forces you don't understand. The symptoms, the distress, often lessen or resolve when the underlying hidden material is consciously acknowledged and worked through. You gain agency.
So understanding dreams isn't just about dreams at all, is it?
Not really. It's much bigger. It's about understanding the pervasive influence of unconscious processes on everything, our thoughts, feelings, relationships, choices. Learning to decode your dreams is like taking a masterclass in decoding yourself. It offers this unique window into the hidden dynamics shaping your waking reality and your potential for personal growth. The insights from your nightly stories can genuinely illuminate your entire life. Hashtag tag tag outro.
Wow, what a journey that was, really peeling back the layers on our nightly stories from, ancient ideas about prophecies all the way to Freud's intricate dream work, condensation, displacement. It's clear our sleeping minds are incredibly active. So the next time you wake up from one of those perplexing dreams, just remember, it's probably not just random froth. It's likely a carefully constructed message, a compromise, a wish, maybe a repressed thought trying to find a way out. And hopefully you now have a bit of a framework, a starting point for trying to decode it, for taking those first steps towards deeper self-awareness.
Indeed. And maybe the most provocative thought to leave you with is this. If dreams really are these disguised fulfillments of repressed wishes, and if doing the work of analysis can start to reveal those hidden truths, then exploring your dreams isn't just, idle curiosity. It's potentially an ongoing conversation with the deepest, most honest parts of yourself. A conversation that, just by its nature, is trying to resolve things, trying to understand and maybe ultimately to heal. What insights might be waiting for you in the forgotten corners of your own mind?
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the truly fascinating world of dreams. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and definitely keep digging into the incredible depths of your own mind.